Like, what's the link between sound and spirituality for you? So why do you do what you do?
Sound is one of the foundational elements of spirituality. Um, it kind of, it's, in all different philosophies and all different religions, all different practices, they use sound to enhance your mental awareness and your emotional awareness, your physical awareness as well. I think the beauty of sound is that it penetrates many different levels, basically. It penetrates in your physicality. It penetrates in your, in your emotions. It can make you feel something emotional. Um, and I think, kind of in an esoteric way, the in the Bible they talk about in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. The Word was with God. I think that is kind of like pointing at an perception that words are sounds, and sounds coupled with intention and meaning. And I think there's this kind of balance between kind of intention and vibration. And I think it's kind of hinting at the fact that reality is kind of made up by meaning, and how in some way our reality is, as you know, our reality is kind of like waves of vibration and waves of kind of particles vibrating together at different octaves, different kind of collective frequencies which allow matter to form. I think it's kind of hinting at this the kind of awareness that like sound is what creates reality, really. Sound and vibration. So yeah, probably going for a lot longer, but that's where I start.
Yeah, that's nice. I like how you pitched it as like a mode of opening your mind. And something I've thought about as well is like, I liked when you talked about, yes, words are sounds, but it feels like certain like music, for example, can compel meaning a lot more deeply than a word can. I feel like words are useful because we've all agreed as a human species that certain noises that we make link to certain arbitrary things that we can then agree on and have conversations, and that's how it all works, right? But I feel like all the time, words can limit what we experience. Like as soon as someone tells you that something, as soon as someone uses a word to describe something, you then have a mental model in your brain that you work off because you know the word, rather than actually like looking at the thing or experiencing the thing. So in a visual sense, it's easier to understand. And I've heard like sort of philosophers talk about this idea of like, when you name something as a leaf, right, you then think about all the characteristics that are indicative of a leaf. That it's green, it's like spear-headed shape, comes from a tree, whatever. But actually that boxes in the object that you're looking at, and you're evaluating it against these categories. When if you didn't put the label on it, you could just like take the thing in for what it is. And I think in a way, sounds and music convey, like a deeper part of the human experience that words cannot do justice. It's like, and think about it this way, if you hear a song and someone says, oh, you really like that song, or you use words to describe it, like it made me feel love, or it was exciting, or it was painful, like that word doesn't truly convey like the depth in that music, if you know what I mean. Like, I think music can grip us into such a way that's greater than many other forms and many other things.
Definitely.
Yeah, so but why? So you talked about on a vibrational level. Is that sort of the thought process behind like the therapies that you do when you have people come and sort of have these are they meditation sessions where you play your music, and what's the thought process behind all of that, and the sort of therapy and treatment work that I've seen you do?
Well, I don't know. I would say, again, using words to describe experience kind of in some ways puts a classification on experience. But in many ways, that's useful and necessary in this very complicated reality for us to understand who we are, what we're doing. So yes, I would say it is a meditational aspect. But that's why in some ways I like to call it sound journey, because the aspect of a journey allows us to, it's kind of more open terminology and allows us to have a bit more of a personal kind of unknown relationship with what's going to come. You don't always know what's going to happen on the journey. And, meditation may convey ideas of being very relaxed all the time and very kind of chilled out and peaceful. But actually with sound therapy in general, you actually use in some ways slight dissonant tones to create more places of tension, then going into kind of more deeply relaxing tones to create a pendulum swing of balance and experience, that people could have a more cathartic experience of what their journey. And but I would say as well that this is like in our kind of very Western-minded consciousness, we like we were talking about, we like to kind of box things off and be like, this word conveys this certain thing, and that's all that you need to know, which is obviously useful. But when we kind of touch the mystery of life, when we touch the kind of the ephemeral, the kind of the feelings which are kind of like transcendent or ecstatic, which words don't really give them justice for actually how they're feeling. I think that's what we kind of touch spirit in a way. That's when we touch spiritual experiences. That's when we touch the connection to the divine, which are kind of very simple physical language, especially the English language. The English language is very basic language in comparison to many other languages like Sanskrit, and like different forms of. I think I heard the other day that like the Inuits have like 30 words for snow, and we have one word for snow. And also like there was another tribe which has many different colors for green, and actually because of that they can perceive more colors and variation of green, of the color green, more hues of the color green. So so I was saying that that I think it allows us to basically have a bit more of a detailed experience when we relate to sound therapy or sound meditation, sound healing as a journey or an experience, and try not to label what we think we're going to receive from it.
Yeah. So just to sort of understand this right, the way it's detailed, because it's the difference between kind of using voice and sound is the interpretation of the sound, because the voice has a collective meaning, whereas sound, you kind of interpret it from yourself. But also like these are kind of therapeutic, because for example, like the flute is like one consistent sound that kind of allows you to concentrate on it sort of in a meditative way. And that's which is then you can't really do with ordinary speech.
I'm interested, before we go into other questions I've got here, I want to know a bit about your story of how you came across this kind of stuff, and like, were you always musical as a child or a teenager, or Was there some kind of epiphany moment where you heard a certain piece of music, or you went to a therapy, like the kind of sessions that you're involved in, and that then changed your life and your outlook? Or like, what's your origin story to this kind of stuff, if you don't mind me asking?
It's nice to share my experience of how sound came into my life, because we all have our own relationship. Yeah. So to be honest, what came to my mind was when I was a child, like I was really enjoyed copying people's sounds that really kind of like stood out for me, and how you can make people laugh by copying sounds, and kind of like being able to jump and like be a comedian almost in all these different kind of like noises and sounds, things like that. I used to like copy Pokemon and stuff like that. But yeah, so that stuff came to me first. But my family are actually musicians. My family are jazz musicians. We're in a family band together. So ever since I was a child, I was listening to my cousins singing like soul groups, like 20 people all singing together. And then my family, my close family, my mum and dad and my uncle, like, and that were in a band together. And ever since I can remember, I was going to their gigs. I was a drummer as well. My dad kind of made me the family drummer, so I drummed for them and played percussion. So I was fortunate, really. Like, music was a big, important part of our life, and I think really, like, thinking about it as I grown older, music was always a therapeutic part in our family's life. Like, we, like everyone, we experience trauma in our life, and you know, especially when you come from maybe you can't really afford to have therapy and things of that nature, you find other ways to create your freedom in your therapy. And I think music was that part for us, was that tool to help heal, help clean ourselves and clean our souls, and come back to a space of community and collection and unity. And yeah, I think music was really that key for us. So when I was like 14, I knew I was always very interested in shamanism, because my family are also slightly spiritual, quite alternative. You know, musicians like to get up to more interesting things, more unique things, especially when they're jazz musicians and funk musicians. So yeah, what is it? I was really interested in shamanism since the age of 14, and I started playing the didgeridoo, because the didgeridoo kind of like just for some reason like spoke to me. You know, I was used to like the hardcoreness of drums, and we actually had a didgeridoo from my parents bought at a festival somewhere, and we used to have competitions when we were kids if who could play the didgeridoo the longest. And then when I hit like 15 or so, I was like, okay, I'm just going to practice this for longer and longer. Then YouTube came out, and I was just away. You know? So yeah, didgeridoo really connected with me. Then I picked up the Native American flute when I was like 16, which also really, really connected with me. And yeah, then when I hit around, I would say it was probably like 24. I can't exactly remember. I think it's like 24. I went to this workshop, and it was actually the girlfriend I was with at the time, my partner. She was saying that I should check out sound healing, and I was a typical stubborn like jazz funk musician like that. But I don't need to do any of that. You know, I don't. I never really looked into that. But then I went to this workshop, which some of my friends, once we broke up, I went to this workshop, which some of my friends told me about. And I met this woman who was doing donation-based sound healings with Tibetan singing bowls. And I was going into the gym a lot at the time. I actually injured my back at the gym. I left too big a weight in my boyishness and like injured my back. And it was really painful. But then I laid down on this mat, because this woman was giving me a sound healing. She put the bowl on my back. And she was doing this singing, overtone singing, where you sing two tones at once, and doing the bowls. And I just felt my back relax. it's like all this tension where I injured like the ligaments or the muscles. I just felt it relax and just come to a sense of peace because this bowls on my back and then it's just deeply relaxing and vibrating. And then I kind of got up from that my back didn't hurt. You know, it wasn't like completely fixed or anything, but I could just feel that my back was in a lot less pain. And it just blew me away. I was completely stunned that sound can actually physically do something like that to you. It's not just a mental thing, not just like a relaxation thing. It's actually, you can feel the kind of your body relax and kind of go into a state of calm, and that can help pains and stuff release. So, yeah, and that really blew me away. Then I was like, okay, I need to get my own singing bowls. From there, I kind of just started doing my own thing and got more and more into it over the years and started holding a lot of bigger ceremonies. So, yeah.
It seems like with that sound healing the body example, that's like a translation of energy. So is that actually like you're able to decide through the instrument what you want to translate as the experience?
So do you mean me as the receiver of sound?
As the giver.
As the giver, as the person. I think really when it comes to someone who's like being a sound therapist or something like that, you're not, if you're working a one-on-one thing, it's a lot more privatized. So you can be like, okay, where's the injuries on your body? Where do you feel that there's a blockage? Where do you feel trauma? Where do you feel some type of heaviness to yourself? And then you can work on that spot. You can use like singing bowls. You can sing, actually, people sing into it as well. And it's all with the intention of creating a peaceful, like calming, loving energy that can allow someone to feel comfortable enough and actually like allow those places to open and become more healed. Or you can use like tuning forks specifically on specific points. But you know, like it depends how deep you want to go into it. Because, you know, like when we think like the human body is made up of like 70% or 80% more, something like that, and we can see that, you know, like when we eliminate water, it creates fractal imagery over the water. And if you do that onto the human body as well, within the actual cells, it's most likely, you know, that within the cells, those cells resonate in a way which creates a deeply relaxing sense of peace. And there was another experiment which I can't remember now. They did this experiment about the heart and how you could basically use like instruments to resonate the heart into a kind of stronger pulse. If someone has a fluttering kind of heart, so it does like physically kind of the sound physically penetrates into the body and creates a more structured kind of physicality, like structured kind of resonance within the body to allow the body to feel more peaceful, kind of go back into a more of an alignment. But on an energetic level, you know, it's kind of it's very, very nuanced and in many ways, like, you know, it's all to do with intention. Our life is to do with intention. You know, if we, as part of the issue with our kind of technological advancement now, we have so many different distracting devices which bring us closer together, but also kind of like take our attention away. And because of that, we have less agency in our life. So if we can kind of align our intention more and more and more, what are humans capable of doing? You know, we're obviously capable of doing some pretty damn incredible things, like building pyramids, which we still don't understand how to do, building Stonehenge, or even building, you know, like Tesla's ideas or something like that. Once you have that intention and that alignment, and when that comes in, I feel personally, when that comes into alignment with your mind, your body, your soul, and your spirit, you're capable of truly expressing strong energies and vibrations, or which is very felt in this world, which is made up of resonance and vibrations.
So when you're doing this as a giver, is this some sort of technique where you're trying to make them feel peace wherever they're hurting, or is it rather like you just instead of it being like a technique, you kind of you more there isn't a technique, and rather as you said, it's just your intention that kind of you sort of you see where it is your intention where you channel the sound. Do you sort of understand what I'm trying to say?
Like, is your intention generally to kind of like make a peaceful like vibe, or just like, yeah, I'm just gonna, my intention is to make a sound, or is my intention to specifically help this person heal?
Is it a specific sound that you're trying to reach to help them, or do you kind of just have the intention and see what comes out?
I think it depends, really. It depends what situation you're in. If you're doing a group sound, you're usually focusing on kind of like sounds and using your general intention of trying to create a very strong, held, peaceful environment. But what I would say I do differently than other people is that because I practice a lot of shamanism, I've been studying in a shamanic course for the last 3 years now. I really feel the potency when I focus on specific spirits and specific energies which I'm working with. You know, say if you meditate by an oak tree for a long time, you start to really get a sense of what that oak tree's energy is. And then you kind of call on that when you're in ceremony to express that certain energy in an environment. But then, you know, obviously, when you're working one-on-one, you can work more personalized and work on specific points in people's bodies and kind of like use your voice and toning and sounds to help relieve that blockage once you've had a kind of communication and a dialogue about what's going on.
Okay, yeah, this is great. So to summarize just for myself, and then I want to link into sort of two similar questions. Sounds and music, they have energy, or maybe a nice way of thinking about it is they have intention. And there's something about the sounds and the music and the vibration that creates that penetrates us physically and affects our cells and the water in our body. It affects us emotionally, and it affects us on a spiritual level where we can have these transcendental experiences and find a sense of freedom in the music, in the sounds. So then with that, I mean, that sounds amazing, doesn't it? That sounds powerful. That sounds like things that people need to know about and people need to incorporate into their lives. So first of all, my question is, me personally, or anyone listening, right, might not have access to sessions like you run. And with that being the case, how can we apply these amazing ideas to our daily lives? And secondly, when you were talking, I was thinking about how the music that the majority of people listen to on a daily basis, the sounds that we consume, right, our sound diet, so to speak, is very, what's the word? Like, it feels like it's, rather than lifting us up and making us free, a lot of it's, the themes are quite dark or depressing, or focusing on sort of the parts of the human experience that I associate with your lower parts of yourself, like money, like status, like sex. Right? These things that, you know, I'm talking about the music you hear on the radio, the music that's popular. And do you think that is putting out a different energy and a different intention into people that then affects how we feel and how we behave? So, yeah, firstly, how do we apply these amazing things to our lives? And secondly, do you think that it can affect us negatively when we're exposing ourselves to sounds and music with certain negative intentions or energies?
I think those are really good questions. I think I almost answer them in some ways together. Like, you know, like we are all free beings capable of experiencing what we want And if we want to do something aggressive in our life, we can do that, you know. And if we want to feel a place of calm and a place of stillness and a place of transience and kind of transcendental experience, then we can also do that. But I think the thing is, the most important thing I personally feel about this life is to be aware of this life, and to try and make as conscious decisions as you can about what you're ingesting and what you're kind of like expressing. So with that, you know, like today I will listen to, like, when I'm on the train going to work and, you know, I'm in a place of like feeling I've got a little bit of a cold, like I actually want to listen to a bit more aggressive music, and I'll really enjoy that. And there's nothing wrong with that, you know. That's part of this beautiful multicolored experience of being a human. But on top of that, I'll make sure that I focus my life and I will have a lot of familiarity with sounds and music, which brings me a state of peace and brings me a state of presence, because that's key to actually like accessing like a balanced state of consciousness, awareness. So yeah, I think there definitely is, you know, even listening to some stuff like, well, like, I don't know, Nicki Minaj, or I don't even know, some random stuff online. And it's really kind of aggressive, even worse than that, you know, some of the rap out there. But, you know, that has its place in many ways. You know, these people, like, or we use sounds to express a certain experience which we are constantly feeling. And, you know, if you're living on a council estate, your life's a bit rough, your parents are a bit whatever, you've got a lot of stress and a lot of pain, you don't exactly want to be listening to, say, kind of the most like peaceful, healing, vibration, relaxing music all the time. Like, you need something which is going to bring you some kind of like a bit of cortisol, a bit of kind of like bit of like urgency, and
even if it's maybe a bit more of an aggressive or cortisol-inducing piece of music, sometimes that's necessary for what we're doing.
Yeah, like when I was a kid and I was trying to figure out my boundaries, I was trying to figure out my strength. I like used to love, what got me to drum was actually listening to Slipknot and listening to these crazy, aggressive, like powerful tones, which made me feel bigger than myself. You know? And I feel like when you're going for that stage of, maybe it can be related to some people who are slightly more in their adolescence of consciousness or adolescence of their being, you know, more kind of like caught into the fears and fight or flight response, that they may need to listen to stuff which kind of creates a bit more strength, a bit more urgent power in themselves. But also, you know, like I think it's definitely very, very key, and everybody should probably use it as a practice to be able to listen to music, which creates a sense of calm and a sense of peace. Because I know that when I am feeling sometimes I need some peace in my life, and actually, like, you know, you can connect with those songs on like you know, go into Spotify and type any singing bowl meditation or anything like that, and you can connect with those types of music and create a more peaceful, loving energy, especially, you know, like if you're using it in a place where you are struggling, you know, where you have that like pain of emotion which you can't express. So like, particularly as but all humans, but particularly as men, you know, it's sometimes harder to express these kind of more vulnerable emotions. And actually, music is such a clear force that it can just get in there and allow you to release and allow you to come to a bit more of vulnerability and peace and things of that nature. And also, you said there was another part you said about how can we access it? And obviously, you can just go on to Spotify, listen to some type of guided singing bowl meditation. But I think one thing, which I honestly think all humans, I would highly recommend every living person to try, is just toning. There's this Jonathan Goldman is this really old school sound healer from America, and he created this book called The Humming Effect, and it shows you actually just how think it was 6 hums, 6 long hums, and your body starts to release nitric oxide, and you start to release all these happy and calming, natural occurring chemicals in your body and your mind, and how beneficial it is to just lower your heart rate, to put you into a deep state of peace. And I think everybody can do that. Just sit down in the morning and just hum for a good 5 minutes and just see what that feels like in whatever way you need to, and just allow yourself to do that. And then, you know, from there, there's other places you can go. There's toning, where you start to make a sound like a, like the, A-E-I-O-U. You can do one of those tones. It's like, and do that for a while. And then there's chakra toning. There's many different sounds you can do. But particularly just humming or even humming can be really, really potent. Very, very peaceful, very, very peaceful. And if you do that, honestly, like the first time I ever toned, I ever did humming with 200 people. I was like, my mate, who's a DJ, I go around doing all these sound baths and stuff for him. And we did it at a festival, and got everyone to stand in a circle, and we all hummed and toned together. We did it. And it was one of the most peaceful and powerful. It was both peaceful and incredibly powerful experiences of my life. It was so, I was like surprised that you could feel that high of just toning with your voice with a bunch of people. It was really, really beautiful. But yeah, on your own, it's really, really special as well.
Wait, is Om just going like that sort of thing?
Like, humming is where you go, oh. And you could just type in on YouTube how to hum, and then you could just do that. And it's good, you know, because you feel, the thing is with humming, like you kind of go, it's been used in many different cultures, like as well as like, I think Egypt was one of the first people to start it. They kind of like started up with that ank sound, like, and you kind of start with an, then you close your mouth. And then once you go, you start to feel, rather than that vibration go out, you start to feel it kind of go in and really vibrate your face, which you can really like consciously feel like this vibration happening. And you start to like really relax you. It's really nice.
So that sound in particular is like, it's been discovered as like extremely powerful because of the kind of frequency and stuff.
Yeah, it's what they call it, the universal sound for a reason, you know. It's like the universal tone, because they say it's at the beginning of the universe, it was the first tone which was expressed, and it kind of has like, you know, that ow, has like all tones out, has them all in one kind of sound. So I can understand where they're coming from, and that it may be a metaphor. Who knows the truth of it? You know, people some people are really tapped into some deep stuff, but either way, it feels great, and you can kind of feel the effectiveness in me.
I got to try that. So that was like the first sound that cavemen discovered.
Well, they say that it was the first sound at the beginning of the universe, at the start of the universe. But the first sound which was discovered is probably like, I don't know, probably what could it be? It could probably be like in mother's heartbeat or something. No, I mean, or a fart probably. Anyway,
yeah, that's really interesting about how, on an individual level, an humming practice, so to speak, can be pretty powerful. But then when you have like you said, 200 people all doing it at once, it's like that community aspect to it as well. Just imagine the feeling, like the vibration created in that moment must have been so uplifting. But yeah, I mean, what I sort of sorry, were you going to say something?
No, I was just agreeing. Yeah.
I was just going to say, what I gathered from what you said there was like, there's not necessarily good or bad sounds or good or bad intentions or energies behind the sounds. It's more like you have to apply them in the right context. You know, the important aspect of that is being then aware of your sound diet, as I'm now calling it. I've coined that term.
It's a good term. Honestly, I'm going to take that one.
Yeah. And just being consciously aware of, like, while I'm in the gym, a bit of MM is going to be useful.
Exactly.
But maybe when I'm going to go and fall asleep, it's probably not the right tone to be human. Do you know what I mean? Whereas, or like whatever works for people first thing in the morning, if it's some classical or something like some singing bowls or some opera, or maybe it's heavy metal to get you out of bed. Who knows? But actually knowing and choosing the intention and the energy that you want to create through that, and not like neglecting or agreeing with the idea that sounds can have an effect. Like, don't just think it's trivial. It will have an impact on you, because it does. I mean, it's like, you can think about it on the level of words, right?
Yeah.
Or even a non-verbal example would be when you're in public and you see a baby or a toddler start crying and screaming. You're not related to that being whatsoever.
That is true.
That's just a random stranger's kid. But I don't like it. Like, even today when I left the gym, this guy was like carrying this toddler and it was screaming, and I was like, I felt a physical response.
For sure.
It's wired within us that there are certain energies and intentions behind noise that, and you can maybe think about that from an evolutionary perspective, that led us to prioritize childcare and all of this. So I think there's a lot of depth to this topic, and it's really interesting.
An interesting thing I heard, my friend told me once, is that cats have been evolutionary evolved from being with humans so long to actually make a similar sound to babies and toddlers and little children. Like that, like meow, kind of like lulls you into this false sense of like, like connection almost. And then you're like, oh, he loves me. But, I just want some food out of you.
You know what? That's just reminded me of another weird, interesting fact that I gathered somewhere that's along the same lines. They found in a study, a sleep study, that people fall asleep faster and go into deeper sleep when they have the sounds of dogs snoring and a fire crackling. And the theory behind it is, back in our evolutionary past, if you had a fire going and you had a dog next to you, you were safer from predators, and therefore you could switch off and sleep. Which, like, there is this idea that you can put everything to evolutionary psychology and somehow just wrangle some words around and make it make sense. But it does make sense. Do you know what I mean?
It definitely. It's fun when I turn into like an old fat man. That's my perfect life right there. Fire, a little dog. That's what I'm aspiring for.
Yeah, there's definitely something primal in us that wants that. Yeah.
I'm interested because, like, so you play the didgeridoo, and the sound of that is different to like a guitar or like a piano. Like, it's like quite a powerful sound. Could you talk a little bit about like the power of the didgeridoo and sort of what energy that creates?
Yeah. So, well, I should first probably say that the didgeridoo is actually called the daki. It's the true Aboriginal word for that instrument. And the name didgeridoo was named by Australians. So that instrument is an incredibly powerful instrument. And like I'm so grateful that someone somehow figured out that you could like get a stick and blow into it the right way and make a massive vibration out there. I really feel like someone was definitely super high while they tried to figure that out. But the didgeridoo makes you super high, to be honest. It sounds like cheesy, but it's one of those things where you play a didgeridoo and you play it for long enough, there's such an incredibly potent vibration being projected into your face from this instrument going and you're sounding into these sounds, these repetitive sounds, that it just sends you into a trance, and the vibration starts to go into your brain, and then you feel deeply in a trance state. And and like I really feel like it was one of those things which the Aborigines helped to create the reality through the intention of these instruments and what they call the dream time of, like, this kind of like a trance like state of consciousness, this like shamanic state of awareness. They created meaning to allow them to access the water holes and allow them to access the food. It was like a song which they wove across the web of the land so they could actually live in a way which was harmonious with the land. Because it's such an incredibly, obviously, like dangerous place out in Australia if you don't know how to live out there. So yeah, the didgeridoo is a very, very, very powerful instrument. And I think like it's one which I've had some of the most extraordinary experiences with. Just really strange and deeply powerful. I also noted that when I play it, people get the most kind of states of vision with it. They get the most kind of like imagery comes to them a lot of the time, and a lot of powerful feelings, a lot of like emotion comes through, because it's a very primordial sound, I would say. So yeah.
Another powerful sound, like, just coming to mind is in Asian culture. I can't remember what it's called, but it's like a massive drum thing.
Is it the gong? Are you talking about the gong?
Yeah. Like, what kind of is that for, and what energy does that sort of give off? If you
So do you mean the massive gong, like the massive metal things?
Yeah, when like the people just whack, and it kind of like the vibrations are mad.
Yeah. So the gong is one of those things which, like, it can really send you into like the deeper brainwave states, into the deeper kind of theta states, which is the states of when you're like in deep sleep, because your brain can feel these vibrations, and it kind of almost, I feel personally, I feel like it creates a bit of like a dissociative effect, because there's so many rippling sounds coming over to the person, and you're kind of like in this expanse of noises. And they have it's like an ocean as well, they have a kind of like wave which comes over to them, because it's a perfect kind of like circle. It kind of, the actual vibration of it ripples out in waves. And it really puts you into this kind of like deeply dissociative kind of experience, where you start to just drift off. And again, like with the didgeridoo and also the gong, people say that really creates like a lot of almost like union with the higher senses of consciousness, like you're floating off into a kind of expansive space. And yeah, so I would say, like, the difference between I much prefer to use other instruments than the gong, because the gong is so incredibly like deep, and deep that if you're constantly using the gong, I find, in a sound journey or as a sound meditation, you can kind of like can make people feel slightly disassociated when they come back. So you can kind of like use the gong, and then kind of like bring them back with other instruments, and kind of like bring them back into a stronger, kind of more kind of alive frame, more sober awareness. But yeah, the gong is a beautiful instrument, very powerful instrument.
Yeah, and am I right in thinking the didgeridoo especially takes, number one, a lot of force to actually play, and actually a lot of time and effort and hours to master. Like, it doesn't look like something like, like the penny whistle that you can just pick up and like start dithering some tunes on. Do you know what I mean? It takes years, to get to a point. I mean, you talked about, how was it sort of did you say it was a family member that introduced you to the didgeridoo, or you picked it up when you were a teenager or something?
Well, I basically my parents used to play at a festival called WOMAD, and they picked it up and then brought it home. And since I was a kid, it was just kind of like hanging around. So But I would say that the didgeridoo is probably one of the most simple but complicated instruments, because it's incredibly simple. All you have to do is, make one sound to actually play the instrument. But then on top of that, if you want to take the instrument to the level of kind of like deeper mastery, you have to learn how to circular breathe. You have to understand how to do all these different calls. You have to learn how to not just circular breathe one way, where you do long tones, but you want to be able to circular breathe in rhythm with making a song like do 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 do, like really kind of like in a kind of deep rhythm. So you're not just taking long breaths, you're like taking little short breaths and then doing a rhythm and then taking short breaths. So it's a very complicated instrument. But yeah, I think the didgeridoo, it's kind of like one of those cliche things you see, like some type of hippie-ish dude with a didgeridoo. It's like but for bang for your buck, didgeridoo is a good instrument to like mess around with, because it is like reasonably cheap. You can take it anywhere. And actually, you can get some really, really powerful kind of states of awareness from it. So no wonder these hippie guys love it.
Well, I really do think into later in my life, like I definitely want to be at a point where I want to a dad or whatever, I want to learn the didgeridoo, and then to like wake my kids up in the morning, instead of like a knock on the door or shout like you're going to be late for school or come down for breakfast, I'm just going to get didgeridoo, just play it outside their window. Yeah, or just like one really long low tone, and that's like they'll just learn that dad's telling me that breakfast is ready, but really I'm just outside their room playing.
One door calls for aid.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
my wife, my partner's actually pregnant, and she so I played the didgeridoo on her stomach, and she absolutely loves it. We're gonna when she's giving birth, we're gonna be playing the didgeridoo and playing all my instruments.
Well, just giving you up.
Sorry?
During giving birth, you're going to play.
Yeah, during the actual birthing process, I'm going to be playing didgeridoo and really bringing in some sounds, because it creates such a deep state of consciousness. I think the more we realize about birth, like we're kind of seeing more and more that people are just having like C-sections just getting higher and higher and higher. Like I think it was we're watching this program right now, and it said that 50% of births in China is a cesarean, and 1 in every 3 births in America is a cesarean. And yet we've been giving birth to humans for hundreds of thousands of years, and like I think there's this thing of like this really big fear of birth, and actually I feel like what we both feel like is that like because there's this fear. Women need to be in a very deep state of relaxation to be able to give birth. They should be in a kind of place where they're in trance. You shouldn't have any light coming in through the windows. You should have like it all just basically a complete nest with them to be in as deep a relaxed state as possible so they can give birth. And when you don't have that, when you're in a hospital, there's loads of sounds and there's all this crazy beeping, so many inhuman sounds. Of course, it's going to create more and more kind of difficulties with birth, where people are stressed out and need to, need to kind of do more extreme things to give birth. There's this amazing documentary called Iron May, which is really beautiful about birth, which we're actually watching. But we've been doing this practice where I play didgeridoo and also on her stomach. And just seeing how much it puts her into a state of relaxation, and also when the baby sometimes in the day is like they're really kicking, kind of like moving around, and then I on the baby or I play didgeridoo, and the baby just stops moving as much. It just it just doesn't really move. It just goes into like more relaxation, and the kicking and the fighting stops. Wow. So it's kind of interesting. Like, just obviously this is our first child, which we've both had. So, first child for both of us. So it's interesting to see, actually what, how this will all be kind of slowly express itself as the baby gets older in the womb and out of the womb and in pregnancy. It's really, really exciting. But yeah, I really think more and more that we're realizing the power of sound. And I think Casey said that the medicine of the future will be sound. And I think that kind of hints at the true power of sound, the true power of frequency and vibration. You know, there was a reason why these like pyramids and these ancient cultures would build all their incredible structures in kind of mathematical kind of affection and in different mathematical frequencies in line with the stars and things like that, because they realized the potency of connecting with the deeper and more kind of the bigger vibrations, the bigger kind of connections to vibratory frequencies. Yeah.
Are you gonna bring your didgeridoo to the hospital?
I'll be that dad, like, excuse me. No, we're actually having a hand bath. So we're not going to be in the hospital at all. Our dealer lives next door to us, and we're going to have a water bath and a home bath, and everything's going to be here for us.
That sounds amazing, man. That sounds amazing. Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, I love it, and it's interesting, isn't it, that I think you're so right that we have very much like what's the word? Like made the process of giving birth so artificial and I want to say like over hygienic, but obviously like we needed it to you know, obviously like the death rate of birth is so much lower for both the mothers and the children, and that's obviously the great benefit of the way we do things now. But I do agree that a certain natural primal element of the process of giving birth has been reduced by the way we do things these days. And I just think it's amazing to hear your guys' plans, and yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, I think also with birth, you know, it's like it shouldn't be either or. You know, we shouldn't be like, oh, we have to like be the least hygienic and the kind of least medical kind of way of giving birth possible, or the most hygienic and the most kind of like way of giving birth, most medically intervened way of giving birth possible. You know, we're in a time now where we can choose to incorporate both similar aspects of like wisdom, of the scientific wisdom, which is more kind of like, you know, the left brain rational stuff, but also the kind of deeper wisdom of more, say, indigenous cultures who were aware. You know, they like when they take a baby out, they actually use like forceps and stuff like that to kind of, you know, anyway, not to get too into it, but, you know, quite very intense ways to get babies out, because a lot of the time these women were stressed because they're in places where you know, they weren't that in a peaceful place, you know, where they weren't kind of like deeply comfortable and felt like they were secure and comfortable. And also, you know, like even just the fact that like when you have a baby through a C-section, the baby doesn't pass through the vaginal canal and receive all the healthy bacteria which comes from that area, and that's kind of what kickstart the baby's immune system. So I think, I forgot where, but they started basically getting some of that mucus and wiping it over the baby to help kickstart their immune system. You know, because these things are very like important, but we're in a kind of bit of a kind of deeply kind of ingrained surgical intervention and medical intervention society, where we rather than say actually taking some of the older wisdoms and the newer wisdoms and trying to create a balanced form which is good for everyone, you know.
Yeah,
it is the process of giving birth quite, and is it too unnatural then?
I wouldn't say it's too unnatural, because obviously if you mean that the process of giving birth in the hospital, I wouldn't classify it as something like, oh, that's too unnatural for me. I would just say that, like, you know, it's obviously beneficial. You know, like if you break your arm, you're going to want to go to the hospital for them to sort it out. But like, there's places, and if you can get, say, someone who uses the wisdom and awareness of, say, having a very peaceful, calming, loving, relaxing environment, lovely chilled out music around to allow women to give birth, it's going to make a lot more of a cohesive and easier time for women to give birth. But obviously that's going to cost a lot more money than if we kind of stick women in a time schedule where they have to give birth to a specific point and kind of get them out quick so we can get different people in. I'm just saying, like, like if we were kind of more appropriate in our ways we treated birth, then we'd probably have a bit more of a kind of like, or we definitely would have a bit more of a peaceful, relaxing and more cohesive time for the women actually giving birth, and also for the babies.
I definitely agree with you that over time, I put my optimistic hat on. I feel like we will move into a world that combines those two forces. It's sort of like, if you think about our ancestors, where you hear all these like stories from history about the more spiritual and subjective and mystical forms of medicine and healing that have been discovered from thousands of years ago. And then you've got sort of our age now, which is at the height of the scientific revolution, where we are going all Victor Frankenstein and playing God and able to move bits of body parts around and add chemicals here and amputate limbs and all this kind of stuff. And I feel like we're going to hit a peak point there. And then as more people have conversations like we've had today, we'll begin to sort of wake up to how actually these spiritual woo-woo like type practices that maybe the majority of people will frown upon and see as unscientific actually have a lot of weight to them. They just can't be measured in the same means that the more scientific approach can. As more and more people wake up to the power, I think the two will work in tandem together. Like you say, if you break your arm, you'll go to accident emergency, like obviously, but I think also preventative medicine will become a big thing. I feel like the way we think about mental health and trauma will become more spiritual, and it'll be about having connection with yourself, but also with others and with whatever the divine is to you, whether that's a god or just spirituality as a whole. And as I say, if I look at it from an optimistic perspective, I feel like that's a bright future we could be moving towards.
I would agree. I would say in some ways we're already there, and like we're living that reality right now, because there are spaces where people and there's people expressing these things who are on a very big scale, like Joe Rogan is a very healthy kind of I think can be a very healthy figure for some people to look up to. He's definitely done a lot of beneficial stuff for me. Then you have the psychologist Gabor Mate, who talks about epigenetics and trauma and things of this nature. And I think we're on the cusp of really there being a bit more of a turning. But I think actually like what it comes down to is that information to prove the holistic arts are valid and important and useful is already there. It just comes down to whether we want to seek it in ourselves and we want to educate ourselves and kind of share that information with people around us to actually recognize that these like all these different practices are incredibly useful.
It seems like there's this proportion of the population that is seeking out this alternative medicine, which is through sound, which is through like Reiki or through sort of plant medicine. What do you think is the distinction of whether you should use these alternative methods or whether you should kind of use the traditional NHS system and stuff like that?
I feel like I said before, it doesn't have to be either or in life. Like we should be able to use the best of both and what we feel like resonates and applies to us, So like personally, I'm not really into Reiki that much. Like I've had Reiki once, but I've never really been attracted to it. You know, I've been much more attracted to kind of like shamanism and sound and things of that nature, and herbs, and being able to collect my own herbs from the woodland and be able to make healthy things like turkey tail mushrooms and yarrow for bits and bobs like that. So I'm more attracted to that type of stuff. And you know, you kind of figure out like what's good for you. Like, you know, we know that what's it? What kind of, can't even think right now. But you know, let's say when I cut my finger, I cut my finger open when I was a child and it was hanging off and like it's very horrible. And like, you know, like I was incredibly grateful to go to the doctors and for them to sort me out and bandage me up and put my finger back together. And you know, I was like really grateful for that. And actually, like, you know, I think similar to like using talking therapy, just because you use energetic therapies or kind of therapies which are like qigong or like tai chi or, you know, these types of things, or like herbs and that, doesn't mean, or Reiki or shamanic healing or sound healing, doesn't mean that like you should also, if you're in a good position where you also need it, then you should also be using like where you can use it, sorry. You should also be using like talking therapies, like modern day psychology and those things to kind of help piece a more kind of like a balanced perception around you, if you feel inclined to, you know. But personally, I don't really feel. I feel like I'm blessed in my life enough where I haven't had so much trauma where I truly need to go out and seek a psychotherapist or something like that, you know. So I would much prefer to use preventative measures and kind of use healthy diet, exercise, all these different aspects of trying to be a holistic human being and take awareness of my mind, body, my soul all together, and my emotions. And I'd rather use those and kind of like create a strong foundation, rather than forget about them, not use them at all, and get to the point where I'm actually so knackered and tired and not looking after myself that I need to really rely on the NHS to kind of help me, talking therapies or some like medication or some antidepressants, something like that, you know. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much, man, for coming on. And I think the conversation that we've had today has been really valuable for myself and for people listening. Like, it's evoked a lot of ideas in my head and also fed my desire to learn the didgeridoo. Yeah. Thanks for your time.
I just wanted to
one tips.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask before we stop, like, is there anything that you want to show us or the listeners, like anything you want to play for us to just you don't have to, but feel free.
Any instrument I want to play?
Yeah, for us, or just any sound you want to make.
What can I play? I'll get my flute. 1 second.
Here we go.
This is a Indian flute. It's called a bansuri, and it's yeah. I'm really grateful to have found it.
Beautiful, man. That was very nice. Thank you.
On the podcast, guys. I really appreciate it. And yeah, really appreciate what you're doing here. And I wish you all the best. And if whatever you want another conversation in the future, I'd love that.
If people want to find out a bit more about you, where should they go?
I would say just go on my Instagram. It's Kyle Rose, Kyle space Rose. You'll find me. There's a picture of me. Yeah. And I live in Dorset now. I used to live in Portugal, but now I live in Dorset, which is really beautiful, really very beautiful space. So I'm going to be holding some stuff down here, usually in Bristol. Yeah, and yeah, just wishing everybody a peaceful journey on the next few years of life. You know, there's a lot happening on this planet, a lot of very interesting things, a lot of very powerful things. And I think it's, you know, I just really hope that the human race, through all of this expansion of everything, AI, technology, and, you know, everything, I just really hope we have a lot of grace and peace for it all. I think it's going to be very important that we look after each other and do what we can to kind of make ourselves feel more whole.
That's really beautiful, man. And I tell you what, like Dorset, Bristol, that's not far from us whatsoever. So maybe
in summer, maybe.
Yeah, maybe one day we should link up and me and Jake come to one of your sessions. You can give me a didgeridoo lesson or something like that.
Honestly, yeah, I would love that. It's 15 minutes from the beach, and it's like I'm on holiday all the time. So like we could always go down to the beach, chill out, play some music. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, let's make it happen. All right, man. Thank you very much. And thanks for listening, everyone.
Have a good one.